Hi, everybody. Oh, awesome. So, what I've started doing this year is coming live into my YouTube channel. Here I am, and just laying out the table and discussing what it is that we're going to be addressing for this month to do with a group of sessions that we're going to be doing. So, to explain that a little bit more, in the My Incredible Orbit Academy, we have this beautiful, community of people. And one of the things that we do inside that academy is every single month we do a series of 3 sessions, group sessions that we do together live. And then at the end of the month, we do a debrief. We do a bit of a chat at the end of the month. We talk about any concepts that came up for us, any interesting changes that we notice. We pretty much just discuss anything, whether it's to do with the series of sessions or we can talk about anything. So this is the part of our monthly series where we come together and we put out on the table and talk about our concept for this month. So it's kind of really cool because every single month we get to address a completely different concept. These concepts are always guided by what the collective group matrices wisdom brings forward as what it needs to address. And so these topics for each month, they were chosen right at the end of last year. And what's always interesting to me is that when this happens, when we plan far in advance and the entire year worth of group sessions is already planned out, all these concepts or agendas we're going to be addressing, what's always super fascinating to me is how relevant they are. Unbelievably relevant. It's like we get a window. We always get a window into what are going to be some really big points or things that we're addressing at that time of the year. And it always corresponds quite heavily with what we're personally going through or what we're seeing in the world around us. So the beautiful thing for people is that if you're not a My Incredible Orbit member, and anyone can become a My Incredible Orbit member, you can go to the website JacquieMcIntyre.com and check it out. It's not going to be the right fit for everyone, I guarantee you. But if you're not a member, it doesn't mean you can't join in at least on the discussion on what our concepts are and what could possibly come up for us as a priority to be addressed. The reason why is because all of these agendas are relevant for everybody. They show up in everyone's lives. They impact absolutely everybody to some degree, okay? So you're going to be able to gain from this experience, take away from it whatever you need and use it personally for yourself, okay? It's just an added bonus then if you get to be part of the group sessions and actually receive the transformation and the changes from that. So, yeah, that's one of the wonderful things that we do in this community. Alrighty, so who have we got online? Hello, everyone. Let's dive into talking about attachments. And I say this every month, I promise I do. I say I'm so excited about this month's series, but it's because I always am. I think because it's a new, fresh topic that we're talking about. And so it's the information that comes up for us to look at is it has this excitement around it. It's anticipation. That's what it is. The anticipation that we get to look something straight in the eyes and kind of go, you're not good for me, or you are good for me. I'm going to keep you. Where we get to take things that perhaps were unseen to us or that we weren't aware about and gain awareness of it and turn it into wisdom, I think is something so powerful. So am I excited about this series of sessions? Oh, heck yes, I am. I'm so excited, right? So what are attachments? Look, there is a standard response that I could give you that could come out of some amazing textbook. And yes, I'm going to give you that response. I'm going to give you that viewpoint, but I'm also going to open it up and show you some other forms of attachments that you may or may not be aware of, okay? So attachment can be something that you have to something, to someone, to some place or time. It can be to a group, it can be to a belief, it can be to an event, it can pretty much be to anything. It can be to an animal, it can be to an outcome, it can be to something from the past. An attachment just is that. It's a connection, it's an attachment that's gone to something. It can come back, but I'll explain that a little bit more in a couple minutes. These attachments have traditionally been taught to us over the years that they exist more on a mental or psychological level. And that's so far from the truth, it's not funny. Because these attachments very much can exist, yes, on an emotional level, on a psychological or mental level. So in other words, they can really be wrapped up in different levels of the mind. And that is definitely something in our sessions that we could go into greater detail and depth looking at. So we might be looking at an attachment that we have to something, but it's more that it's the subconscious or the subconscious aspect of the mind that has that attachment more than maybe the conscious part of the mind. So attachment just isn't, throwing a blanket over the concept of, oh, it's psychological and it's all just got to do with the mind and that's where attachment is, okay? It can exist on that emotional level, that energetic level, the psychological / mental mind level, but it also can be on the spiritual level, because we are spirit, whether we realize it or not. We are, that's what we are part of. And on the soul level, and most definitely on consciousness level. And sometimes the attachment will be more perhaps psychological than it will be emotional or energetic. And as I said, even if it is more that the attachment is psychological, it still will have attachment to the physical body. There'll be attachment that shows up on the energetic level, the spiritual level, so on and so forth. But you might have more, just more attachment to something that exists on some level of the mind. Or it totally could be energetic, right? I've seen it all in a million different ways. I've seen it all, where we have attachments that are more driven one way. You still see attachments on all other levels, yeah? And then there are also people where it is like a full body mind, like it involves the entire body mind complex. It is an attachment to something, or something is attached to the person, and it is really wrapped up good and proper throughout the entire body mind complex. Now, as a disclaimer, because I quite often get this, people say to me, well, does that mean that they're harder to address than, say, other attachments that might be more heavily attached energetically, but they're not so much detached, on a spirit level or a physical level? No, we don't know. We don't ever, until we actually get in there and address it. There are definitely times when you look at something for somebody and it seems like it's quite involved, or it's quite entangled, it's quite leveled, there's a lot of ingredients. But sometimes they are the quickest things that will shift for somebody. So we just want to make sure that we don't fall into the attachment of thinking that something's going to be harder to work through than others. We actually don't know. We never know what we're ready to let go of, or what somebody's ready to let go of and process through. And also what work's already been done to a certain point of time, and it's just ready to be released or changed, okay? Yeah, but the biggest thing is that regardless of how those attachments are connected, they're absolutely going to involve all levels of the body-mind complex. It will affect everything, absolutely. The way that it affects is going to be different for everybody, and that's for so many different reasons. You know, it's got to do with how somebody is physically, how they're going psychologically at the moment, any stress or trauma that they've had in the past. I was going to say whether or not that stress and trauma has been dealt with. That will have an enormous impact on how these attachments affect them, okay? Genetics, ancestral history, all of it tells a story, a really unique story. So one of the things that I love about our My Incredible Orbit community is that everybody in the academy comes together, and everyone's individual innate wisdom forms this collective group. And it's the group's innate wisdom that comes forward and says, this is what we prioritize to be addressed and to repair or change that has to do with attachment today in this session. And because you have the entire group as observers to one another, I find, it's primarily one of the reasons why I still do this work after all this time, is that the shifts are really profound and they're quick, and they're also quite gentle, because you tend to do it as a group. It has a really supportive, bonding, loving consciousness about it, as opposed to perhaps sometimes, not all the time, we don't want to have attachment to what that story looks like, but sometimes when you're doing that journey on your own, it can be rough. It can be tough, you know. So I find that the group healing work and the ability to come together as a group is more important to us now than ever before, is my personal feeling. That's what keeps coming up again and again. So most of the time, as human beings, we are so unaware of the epic number of attachments that form over an entire lifetime. Ones that we form to things or peoples or places or objects or whatever it is, times, events, but also form to us, right? And from time to time, we might have this conscious inkling that we have an attachment. Let's talk about an attachment to something else for the moment, all right? It could be something like an attachment to a person that maybe you used to date them and you don't anymore. You might have an attachment still to that person. Or you could have an attachment to your child doing well. You know, that's so common. We see that happening a lot, you know, where you get really involved on multiple levels and you have an attachment. Not in a healthy way, but in an unhealthy way mostly, is how it will come up, is you have an attachment to, I need my child to do well. What if they don't do well? And then attachment to, what if they don't do well? What does that mean? What do people think? What does that mean for them? Have I failed as a parent? So much attachment. Oh gosh, I could talk about that even for days. But so much attachment can just come up from that one concept of, I have an attachment to my child needing to do well. Okay. The attachment to maybe somebody that you used to date from a long time ago, that could be, you know, oh my gosh, I still love them, or do they think about me, or I wonder what they're doing now, and what if, you know, what if we stayed together, and what if we didn't break up, and what would our children look like, and, you know, like a lot of attachment to that. And there's numerous different reasons why that's a really unhealthy attachment. So that's just like two super basic examples that commonly come up in amongst a whole host of thousands of other attachment examples that could possibly come up, right? Um, all of them are great examples of attachments, but we're not going to define what type of attachment could come up, what time period of our life it comes to, whether it relates to something we're attached to in the past or whether it's something that we're attached to in the future, right? Where we can have be very attached to an outcome. You know, I need it to look like this, otherwise I'm not going to be happy. That's massive attachment. So we can be attached all different ways, rightio. And as I said, you might from time to time have this, you know, I'm super attached to this story, this outcome, this person. You might have that awareness, and you might be able to take then extra steps to find a healthy relationship, or even maybe a neutrality, whatever it is that you're attached to. But mostly, a lot of the time, people are largely unaware of their attachments, right? Even if they do get a sense of, I have a strong need for them to be this for me so that I can feel safe. That's an attachment, right? As an example. So somebody has that, a sense of that. Gosh, I have this massive, strong need for them to be that for me so I can feel safe. So many people won't actually see that as an issue. And that's because we are really conditioned to think that attachments like that are healthy, that it's okay, that it's normal. That really is what is, we see representation of that all day, every day in the world around us. We see it on TV, we hear it on the radio, we hear it in songs, you know, in the back talk of songs, we hear it in conversation. Is this conditioning, and it comes through so subconsciously, and regardless of your best interests of, you know, not wanting to be attached, is that it will creep in and it will show up for you in multiple different ways. So it's one thing to have that realization of, whew, I definitely have attachments. Everyone has them. Everyone has them, okay? So that's the first thing. I have attachments. And when you realize then that perhaps you have an attachment to something, that's a huge chunk of your healing journey. That's a big step just to get to there. But then being able to take that steps further. It's one thing to be able to say, I feel like I have a bit of attachment to that, the way that it emotionally triggers me, or I'm really attached to the outcome, or, you know, I'm just waiting and resting on the outcome of that. That's a big thing to get to that point, but it really needs to be then taken further. It's not enough to just get to there. It won't change around that. It'll just keep manifesting itself, but perhaps in different ways. Okay. So we generally, there's a really good little a framework, I suppose, that we can use to determine whether an attachment is considered to be, and I really don't like the polarities of these kind of seem very black and white, and that they're not this black and white, but it's the best way I can put it into words right now. I think it's going to try to unpick itself a little bit better in sessions for sure. So we'll see how that comes up for my Incredible Orbit members. But we can always get a sense of whether an attachment is healthy or unhealthy by the way that it makes us feel. And the experience that we have in ourselves, and the experience that we have with that moment, with that thing, with that person, with that outcome, whatever it is, right? When we're in attachment mode. So if it is whatever you think you've got the attachment to, if it is, you know, dragging on you, draining you, if it's pulling you up into your head where you're thinking about things and going over and over things, that's unhealthy. because by default, when we're expressing our natural consciousness, we are designed to be more experiencing reality from a whole body-mind perspective. And you'll find that you feel more connected into your heart brain and also your gut brain. And that's going to feel more neutral to you, all right? So if it pulls you, drags you out of your true nature, if it causes stress, if it causes blame, like you to go into blame or blame to come towards you, if you get triggered, if you have big buttons being pushed, that's an unhealthy attachment. And if not addressed, then it's going to manifest in life as drama, as chaos, as stress. And keep in mind that stress is not just a word. It's not just, you know, a flippant terminology where somebody goes, oh, this is causing me stress, or oh, I'm stressed. That stress has a profound biochemical response within your body. Totally unharmonizes and really rocks the boat and has a pretty devastating effect throughout all of your organs, all of your hormone producing glands, all of your systems. So I don't ever want to get comfortable with that, you know, term stress. Even that concept stress is really, really interesting, right? We could talk about that for a long time, because there are some small situations where stress can be a really productive blessing, right? But if we have a great relationship with it, if we understand what's going on, and also if we use it, if we action what's being shown to us during those periods of stress. But normally, again, we're not taught how to do that. It's definitely something that is not wanting to be empowered into the human being, that's for sure. So the more disconnected you are from stress and the concept of it, and even what's happening in the body during stress, will be so empowering for you on so many levels. And yeah, that could be coming up as a huge piece for us that we need to address. If the attachment's causing anxiousness, depression, all the way through to many multitudes of physical responses, a lot of people call those symptoms, illness processes happening within the body, unhealthy attachment, some unhealthy attachment process going on. One of the many reasons why I love facilitating body talk sessions, which is what I've been doing for more than 16 years, is because there is a huge percentage of our time when we will have attachment and we will not have an awareness of what the attachment is. We will be really unaware, unconscious, oblivious to that we have an attachment process going on, whether it's attachment outwards to something or someone, or whether it's an attachment towards us. And one of the amazing things to do with body talk is it gives us this very easy process of going into whatever level of consciousness it is to be able to address the attachment that is there. So if there is significant attachment to, you know, we might have an attachment where there's a fear of failure. That's such a common thing, right? And that can have a devastating effect physically in the body. Somebody could be having digestive system issues and they've got massive intolerances and they're having sleeping problems, and now they've just been diagnosed with anxiety. And, you know, it's this steamrolling of experiences that that person is having over weeks and months. And because there is this attachment is really subconscious, when they're talking to somebody and somebody says, what do you think's going on? Like, you know, you're sick in the belly, you can't concentrate properly, you're sleeping problems. Where's this anxiety all of a sudden coming from? Then that person will likely say, I have no idea. I don't know. I have no idea. And it's okay to have no idea, because the beautiful thing with that is that this system knows exactly, because the innate wisdom of the person says right there in the subconscious, attachment to fear of failure. So then we have this easy way of being able to address that really, really effectively, where not only does it bring it to the attention, conscious awareness of it, which is so powerful, but then it loses its attachment. The attachment loses its attachment. And then the person just starts to experience themselves more in their true nature. They start to experience life with far less stress. If you were to ask them, so how do you feel about failure? They're like, I'm going to make mistakes. Who cares? I'm going to learn. That will come to be more their attitude. So no attachment to fear of failure, okay? And it's so important that we keep that in mind, because when I say majority of us really have no idea about the attachments that we have, we really don't. There are just thousands upon thousands upon thousands of attachments, okay? It's good then to know that even if you might not be consciously aware of some attachments that you have, is that you'll get insight to that they're there through these experiences that you have. So, you know, being big buttons being pushed, triggers being had, drama in life, chaos happening, anxiousness, they're all really good indicators of some type of attachment process going on. So it's a nice little window in there, right? And as an extra point, if I could add it here at this time, finding yourself being triggered from attachment or anything that I actually say here today is a really wonderful opportunity for healing. So don't ever shy away from those triggers, because those triggers really just are a wonderful opportunity to address something and be done with it, so that you can, you know, move on and experience yourself in life truly as you're just meant to experience it, which is pretty cool. All right. Yeah, so in this series of sessions, I'm super excited to see what we address, because we could easily do daily explorations of this topic of attachment in sessions. We could do it daily, and still we would be nowhere getting towards, you know, the bottom of that barrel. This is such a big topic. So it wouldn't surprise me if maybe, you know, this series of sessions of attachment maybe even comes up again next year for us to address in the community. There's always so many layers. And remembering too, one of the wonderful things that I love about a human healing process is that you can go through significant journeying through life where you really uncover a lot of things about attachment and repair from it, heal from it, let go of the attachments. And because you elevate in your awareness, you become clearer in your mind and in your awareness. Quite often what comes into the surface to be presented at a later time is a whole different level of attachments that you're then ready to be able to address again easily, okay? Just remembering that the more you do that as part of a group, the more profound that experience can be. And I really think as human beings, we're moving more into this time now where we recognize how important connection, community, bonding and support really is to our individual journey, okay? Yeah, so we have attachments that form two things, and attachments that form to us from so many different things. In my day-to-day clinic working with people, one-on-one, I do a lot of one-on-one sessions, and also then facilitating sessions in groups, I constantly see new attachments, types of attachments, configurations of attachments, and attachments as concepts popping up. Just yesterday, I facilitated a session for somebody, and this whole new concept of attachment came up that I'd never seen before. So that's what I was talking about. The more I'm loath to use the word work, but it's the one that pops up for me now. So the more inner work that we do, find me another word, I don't like that word. The more journey, let's do that. The more journey we do through our own limitations and our own stuff, the more we are able to perceive, the more we will learn, the more our wisdom activates and the more wisdom we're able to take in. And that's really a great sense that I got yesterday as well, is this brand new attachment that I was seeing was a new piece because of the journey work that we've been doing. So it was really quite incredible, and it was so cool to see because, you know, as I said, it wasn't something I'd seen before, and when you get eyes on it, it's like, oh, you can't hide from me anymore. I know you're there. So it's like finding a honeypot sometimes, I guarantee it. Yeah, so these new ones, they're going to be popping up, revealing themselves all the time, okay? And as our consciousness, awareness as a collective increases, we are going to see more and more awareness around these attachments that we never even knew existed or were a thing to begin with. We're going to see them surface, and that is very exciting. Yeah. So our learning about attachments, how they serve us, how they affect us, and how they hinder us, how they hinder our spiritual evolvement, how they hinder our emotional wisdom, how they hinder our relationships, how they hinder our ability to really be able to embrace and step into happiness and freedom and peace is huge. But it's also, you know, what we're finding out about, what we're really discovering, and, you know, very much ongoing, that work. So I'm possibly, you know, we're not going to be able to cover them all today in this introduction. And to be honest, I'm seeing so many different references of attachments coming up in very, very quickly. It's like in this last year to 14 months, I've never seen so much reference, and especially new types of attachment references come up as opposed to all the years before. So that really not only shows me but confirms my feelings that things are really changing for us big time. All right. But one of the things that you can do, say if you're not part of the My Incredible Orbit community yet, you can do this in between your own body talk sessions. If you don't really have somebody that you can debrief this kind of stuff with, one of the things that you can do, not saying that you have to do that because that's not the be all and the end all, right? But one of the things that you can do is journal the things that come up for you. That's a really powerful process. A lot of people don't recognize how powerful it is, that action of being able to convert thoughts, feelings, sounds, whatever's coming up for you into written word, or scribbling objects, putting colors on paper, things like that. But it can be really beneficial to journal out all these things that come up for you, things that you feel like that you're attached to, and you possibly feel like are attached to you. Now, if you are really willing to step into the process of surrendering and letting that process unfold organically, then you could be really, really surprised at what pops up for you on the page. You might find attachments that come up to things, or things that you feel like are attached to you that you really had no awareness of before. And that's a window that opens up for you, that gives you the opportunity to see what you hadn't seen, and then go, oh, I'm going to chase that. I'm going to chase that window. I'm going to go after that because it comes up for a reason. It's really important to remember that. So I wonder, you know, what do you have attachments to? Knowing that we all have them. What do you feel like are your attachments right now that are ready to be addressed or needs to be addressed or hold you back or impact your quality of life? Yeah, what attachments are coming up for you? And there is, please forget any notion around shame, because we all have them. And there is this massive conditioning that's been happening for, gosh, I couldn't even put a timeline on how long, right? There's this massive conditioning that tells a person to be attached, that tells a person to get attached to things, get attached to people, get attached to outcomes, get attached to fear, get attached to shame, right? That says it over and over again. So in essence, we're learning how to unbecome what we've become. We're unlearning it. That's a good thing, yeah? I'm definitely interested in letting go of attachments that keep me locked in my pathologies, in limited thinking, that prevent me from experiencing me in my most truest nature, my most organic self, right? That's my focus for me. That's my focus for members moving forward as well, and addressing just whatever needs to be addressed and it comes up. There's also going to be attachments. You know, you might have attachments or write attachments down that you're consciously familiar with. You could have attachment to maybe, you know, your kids liking you. So I have an attachment to my kids. I'm not saying this. I'm just actually remembering a client who had a really strong attachment to her kids liking her. So it was more important that they were her friend, that they saw her as a friend, than that they saw her as a parent. And that massively affected her strength as a woman, her matriarchal energies, her ability to be able to hold boundaries and parent and that kind of thing. So that was a very, very big piece that we addressed for her that really radically changed life for her amazingly. So it could be something to do with that. There could be attachments to maybe people thinking that you're a nice person. That's so common. You know, I want people to like me. I want people to think that I'm nice. I want people to think that I'm good, yeah? And one of the most common ones is having an attachment to an outcome. You know, we quite often do things because we want a particular outcome, as opposed to being spontaneous or experiencing life in the present moment and really surrendering to whatever comes up, comes up. Whatever we do that. And however this unfolds is how it unfolds. So, yeah, attachment to outcome is very, very, very huge. And quite often it is what is a major sabotage in somebody's journey, in their success, in their relationships, everything, yeah? So, as I say, we've only got three sessions in this whole series where we need to be able to address attachment. And there's so much in this pool of attachment that it's going to be so interesting to see what the group's collective innate wisdom says is the most important thing that we need to address today, right? Another common attachment is, and you might even be familiar with this, is with family, you know, especially to parents, how they feel about you, what they think of your progress, your journey, your success, how they talk about you to yourself or how they talk about you to other people. And sometimes there is a priority where we need to make some changes to attachments that are between family members or attachments that we have to specific family lineages or people back out through those ancestral lines. Now, They can be that we're addressing attachments for unhealthy reasons because they have an unhealthy or pathological impact on you. But also we might need to form attachments to somebody out there. And that does come up as a priority quite often. And that would be considered a healthy attachment. And it's not necessarily that innate wisdom says, you know, this is an attachment that we need forever. More often than not, it's the innate wisdom that says, you know what, we need to plug into this information. We need this wisdom. And that person out there in our ancestral line, they have that. So let's form an attachment to them. Let's learn what we can learn from that. And then once we've learned it and we've got the information, we'll sever that attachment. So innate really understands quite well when there is a need for attachment. So it would be considered healthy attachment. And then when there's need to not have that attachment. And generally speaking, there would be a mechanism that happens within our body-mind complexes that would identify when we no longer need the attachment, it would sever the attachment. Because we've got so much conditioning and we've got so many, you know, people back out through our genetic lines and our ancestral lines that have had the same or similar conditioning, it means that those attachment processes that would normally go through the natural process of turning off, they don't do that. So then they stay on and they just keep being lit up all the time, and the attachment seeks the attachment all the time. So that can sometimes be very simply what we're doing is we're recognizing, gosh, that attachment was meant to sever itself a long time ago. And so we set the priority for it to sever attachment. The moment that happens, a person instantly feels that and notices that. And that can be such a, you know, very, very powerful thing. Right. So did you answer? Did you put down what some of your attachments are? Yeah. I wondered whether anyone would be going to do that. Yeah. We also, that's going to be a big piece for us, I feel. It's just coming up again for me. I was just pausing to see that is sometimes when we have the tools, the skills, we've acquired the knowledge, we can effectively address those attachments that we consciously have. And I find that clients, people that have had body talk, have a much better ability to be able to address that consciously. But it's likely that the unconscious attachments are the ones that are going to come to the surface, because that's really when the innate wisdom wants to highlight and bring it to our attention and say, "Hoi, we've got this attachment in the background here and nobody's aware of it, and we need to get eyes on it. We need to do something about that, because look, it impacts this person physically this way, it impacts this person in their relationships this way, or impacts the person's relationship to themselves." And that's usually what one of the big things will be. So yes, we'll be most definitely doing the unconscious portion of attachment. Yeah. Now we can also have attachments that come from things to us. Yeah. And gosh, they could be any number of things. As I said before, our awareness is opening up and we're finding more and more concepts as attachments that we've perhaps never even seen of or heard of before. So this could potentially be a real learning journey for us. But we can have people or a person particularly that is attached to you. There can be high emotions or trauma from a particular tragic event or a particular time of your life that's really energetically attached to you. There actually can be energies, and I use the word energies very loosely because there are so many different types of energies, structures of energies, and energies that come from very different locations, orientations, that, again, I couldn't possibly talk about them just in this introductory video. So that is also another common thing. is attachments to the person, affecting the person, that are energetic on some level. They can come from a person, they can come from a thing, they can come from a deceased person, they can come from an entire group, an organization. One that I addressed the other day for a client was a particular government organization created their own agenda, like real forceful projected agenda, and that agenda is so forceful and has so much intent in it that it actually forms its own consciousness, it forms its own energy, and then it attaches to the people or the families, the individuals it's designed to attach to. That's common. That is so common. That happens a lot, right? So again, it will be super interesting to see what attachments we have coming towards the group or members of the group that we need to be able to address, for sure. We could also then be, just to finish this off and round it off, we could be looking at needing to set up healthy attachments, and we certainly don't want to discount that. If there is some wisdom or knowledge that we need to tap into, that is for the betterment of our progress, our health, our evolution, then we want to leave the door wide open on being able to attach to that, form the healthy connections, and then do what needs to be done after that. Yeah. But I am very excited to see what it is. So hopefully throughout this series of sessions, we can understand a little bit deeper that one of our aims as humans is to become unattached from that which is perhaps unhealthy or unhelpful for us, and to attach to anything that is right for us right now in this moment. So, any questions? Hello, Sharon. Hello, Erna. Hello, Lee. Hello. More awareness. Oh, it's Sammy and Lee having a Mindcradle Orbit party with us. Yay! Yeah, lots of stuff around attachment to religion, to ideology, to God, to different dog consciousness, to eating identities. That is so common. Oh, gosh, I'm glad that you brought that up. The religion is a big piece, cultural aspects, very big piece, commonly comes up, but also this eating attachment, because that's really gathered strength. Like there is strong focused consciousness that's been brought into around attaching to an eating identity, like the individual having a label. It's like you're meant to have a label. Like, what are you? How do you eat? Oh, I have an identity as a vegetarian or a pescatarian or a fruitarian or whatever it is, right? So I've not yet, and I would never ever shut the door on that, but I have not yet ever had it in a session where a person's innate wisdom wanted to, in a healthy way, attach to some type of eating identity or eating label. Not to say it wouldn't happen, because I kind of, I don't have any limitations on anything. So, but I'm just saying it's not come up for me yet. What I have had a lot come up is where the innate wisdom says, help me to intuitively find my way with eating, consumption, nutrition. So what that means is intuitively and instinctively navigating your way through, what do I need to eat right now in this moment? Again, it's something I'm aware of, but I don't do all the time myself. But it's something I do work towards, definitely. And it's definitely not something that is instilled in us to intuitively eat, where somebody comes to you and says, what do you feel like you need to eat today? What's your body asking for? What are your microbes asking for? And then we eat that. if that was the case, we wouldn't identify or align ourselves with any kind of eating identity at all. We just wouldn't do it because it's a label we don't need yet. Yeah. It's so good. You brought up some really, really great points there. Really good. Do you guys have any questions, any comments, any concerns, anything that you want to put on the table for our series of sessions? Because I can add it into our big honeypot we've got going on and address it that way. I'm attached to my gypsy persona. Erin says, to who I thought I was or who others think I should be. Yes, I totally agree. Zeus is here with us, joining us. It'd be nice if he jumped up here, but he just stays. He's like incognito down on the ground. He makes a bit of noise just to let you know that he's there. I'm learning to do that regardless of past beliefs of what is healthy and what is not. And very often it is just a step-by-step process, doing what we're able to do as it comes up, and not sometimes actually, and Sammy will attest to this, is that I've had a real attachment in the past to pushing, like I need to understand this, I need to work through this, I need to not be this. So part of my letting go over the last little while has been less attachment to needing to transition through something, needing to be attached, needing to let go of the label, needing to let go of the mask, you know, because I know what it feels like on the other side of that. You know, it's that freedom, it's that peace, it's a contentment, it's happiness. But you can have such attachment to pushing. And I definitely feel like that's a little bit part of the story that you're also talking about, Erina, is that we can share that mirror for sure, yeah? Where we can be a bit too hard on ourselves, and it's that attachment to, but I just need to work through this, and I've got to work through that, and I've got to work through that. Where really what we just need to do is take a step back and go, I'm just going to do me, and I'm going to do me as I come up, and whatever comes up and however comes up is just perfect, yeah? Bye, Zeus. He says, she is not going to feed me, and I am leaving. I think I have everything in the group chat, and if I find more, I'll add. Okay, beautiful. Anything from anyone else before we wrap up? I think that's it. I've got no more that I feel like I need to add. As I said, we could talk forever about this subject, but we're better off just jumping in and doing sessions as far as I'm concerned. Yeah? Excellent. All right, then. I don't think anything's coming up. If I do miss a comment that you guys are putting in, just put it into the comments. Ditch the judgment and expectation, follow your heart. Yes. Specific profession. Oh, that's a good one. I could see how that would be on your radar right now. Yep, absolutely. Let's throw that on the table. I'm glad you put that on there. Well done. Okay. Bye, guys. Have an amazing night. Doing whatever you're going to do. Being the amazing attached and non-attached beings that we are. And I'll see you guys on Monday for a session. If you're able to join me live, just join me in the Zoom room that you find off the welcome page, and we'll do our first session there. Okay. Love you guys lots. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.